counter.
But no, I feel
It feels very
Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinion on all things film. My name is Lewis and I'm joined today with Kyle.
Hello.
Hello, and Gonzalo.
Hey, how we doing?
Hey, hello, how are you guys doing today?
Good,
Doing quite
just-
good.
I literally just realised Gonzalo already asked me first, and how rude of
Yeah,
me.
I did.
I'm
but
doing
you
well.
haven't responded. Oh, good. Good to know. Good to know.
I'm a rude bastard. But yes, on today's episode, we are reviewing one of the biggest blockbusters of the summer, and that is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This will be a full non-spoiler and spoiler-filled review, so don't worry, I will leave time codes below to ensure that you aren't spoiled, and we will give our scores beforehand as well, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of what we liked and didn't like on Indiana Jones 5. But first, we have a quick review for the new Jennifer Lawrence-led rom-com No Hard Feelings. Neither of you have seen this film, have you?
No.
I've seen the
No,
trailer
okay.
for this film, and it seemed
That's
very...
a big step up for Gonzalo, to be fair.
It is a big
honest.
step
That
up
is-
for me,
that's
actually.
huge.
It very much is. It seemed very raunchy and the kind of American comedy I don't really enjoy, so I wasn't really
Yeah.
looking forward to it at all. No.
Fair. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just get to it. So,
Yes.
No Hard Feelings was written and directed by Gene Stupnitsky, a Ukrainian filmmaker, and it was also co-written by John Phillips, and of course stars Jennifer Lawrence, her sort of big, sort of mainstream comeback performance. She actually did the Apple TV movie last year. Can't remember what it was called, but that was kind of her more like indie comeback.
Yeah, because I was going to say, we haven't seen her really in a lot. Do
No.
you know if it's like a thing that she just
She
stepped
had
away?
children and stuff, and I think she was just
Okay, yeah.
the first
That
few
makes
years of
sense.
their life, she was just with him. And then it also stars Andrew Barth Feldman in his acting debut, as well as Laura Benanti and Matthew Broderick. So, yeah, Jennifer Lawrence plays Maddie Barker, who is this Uber driver living in Florida. Not Florida, she lives in a state south of Florida. Anyway, it's close to Florida.
Sunny states.
It's a coastal
Sunny
state.
states. Yes.
Which is, it's now filled with all these rich people who only come to in the summer and rent out their
wow.
big houses
Oh,
and
wow.
their yachts and boats.
What
and
must that feel like?
I know. And Jennifer Lawrence is an Uber driver, and she feels she's being pushed out by all these rich people in her neighbourhood because she lives in this house that was once her mother's and is now hers. And one day her car gets towed away, and now how's she going to work? So she has to find a way to get a new car, and she does so by going on Craigslist and seeing that these two parents, Alison and Laird Baker, who are played by Laura Benatti and Matthew Broderick, are willing to sell one of their cars in exchange for someone to go out and quote unquote date their son to get him out of his shell because he's going to go to college next month or next couple months. And yeah, so if you've seen the trailers, you kind of like Gonzalo said, it's a very raunchy R-rated rom-com, and yeah. No Hard Feelings is probably the most fine film I've seen this year. It's like a big old... Yep,
Meh.
It's a big
that was
old
that.
fight.
It's a big old fine. It's kind of hard, right? Because from the trailer, I think it looked easy. Like, this could have easily been quite gross and disgusting. Where it's like, well, you have
100%.
Jennifer Lawrence, kind of like a sex worker, trying to have, she has to try and make a move and have sex with this 19-year-old boy.
Yeah, we know
And
how how good the track record of Hollywood representation of sex workers is. So I was really looking forward to that.
She's not actually. She's obviously not a sex worker.
No, I
Let's
know.
make-
But,
But and they have a wee joke about that as well. How it's like it's not actually prostitution. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people kind of had gripes with that. Just like, oh, this kind of seems a bit gross and that. But the weird thing is with it is that it doesn't actually come across as gross to me. I think it handled it decently enough. But I think the film is that for a rom-com, it's like got chuckles throughout, but there was never a proper laugh out loud moment. Remember I was talking about Riley before the show, where that was a really energetic and funny rom-com. This never really has any big moments or memorable jokes that, I came out the cinema with Madeline and I was like, I can't really pinpoint a joke that was like, that was the absolute standout one of that. I mean, I think the film really is carried by Jennifer Lawrence. She's just a great screen presence, a really fantastic star, and she just manages to actually have a bit of heart and pathos to Maddie's character, which I wasn't really expecting. But yeah, I mean, it goes through the motion. It goes through the very, very bog standard rom-com formula that we all know. Is
it a whole liar's reveal kind of plot?
Yep. Yes, it has that, of course.
I'm not gonna watch
the
it
liar
then.
reveal cliche. And look, you always say, Gonzalo, it's all about execution. Doesn't matter how predictable your film is, and rom-coms are always very, very predictable. But yeah, when we got to that whole third act, everyone's kind of mopey and sad at this point. I realised I really couldn't be bothered with this part. I was just like, right, can we just?
That's the thing, though. Like we've discussed in this show several times. Some of our favorite movies are incredibly corny and incredibly cliche and predictable. But it's less the corniness and the predictability, and more getting you so invested in the characters up to that point. Then when the corniness hits and the predictability hits, you stop giving a shit because you're just along for the ride. Yeah, it's not about, oh my god. So as soon as you don't manage to connect there, then those become a problem. I remember recently rewatching Crocodile Dundee. That film is another very predictable rom-com, another kind of by the numbers, kind of fish out of water story and stuff. But as soon as the finale hits and you have this moment where like everyone's like in the freaking subway lifting him up and carrying him to her and stuff, like it gets you a little bit emotional, because you've managed to connect with these characters.
Yeah, I mean, look, it honestly is fine. I was never grossly offended by it, but it also wasn't really all that funny. I think Jennifer Lawrence is a great screen presence, and Andrew Feldman, especially this kind of his big debut, Percy is likable enough. He's awkward and he fits the role very well, and their chemistry's okay. It's okay. Genuinely, it's like.
That's another. That's
just
another
be on the
big...
poster. It's honestly, it's okay.
No hard feelings.
No hard feelings. I will say one thing. They did have 2 Catan jokes, which I do like. So if anyone's played Catan, which I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, no hard feelings gets a 5 out of 10 from me. It's honestly, it's fine. Can't really recommend it super, but. It's honestly, it's harmless.
You have nothing else to do.
If you've seen every film ever in existence.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so now that leads us to the main part of the show, and that is, of course, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. But before we really get into that, we've never actually talked much. Well, actually, we did. We did a Spielberg episode, and of course, you talked about Raiders and that, Gonzalo. And I'm going to come to you first and ask you, just very, very quickly, a minute, on just what Indiana Jones as a franchise, did it mean much to you as a child? Was it something you loved? Is it something you've really, really got into in adulthood,
Yeah, so as a child, I absolutely loved the Indiana Jones franchise. I saw them quite late, actually, because surprisingly enough, this was back in the era of, like, you either had it on DVD or you couldn't watch it. And we had the third movie on DVD, but we didn't have Raiders and we didn't have Temple of Doom. And I remember having to borrow them from friends in order to watch them and stuff. So I think it wasn't until I was like 10 or 11 that I watched those. Weirdly enough, my adventure franchise growing up was the Mummy franchise from the early 2000s.
Oh, yes.
Which is funnily enough very reminiscent and kind of like a take on the whole Indiana Jones kind of characters and tropes and stuff. So yeah, but I was very fond of them. The whole idea of like everything like that's become cliche about adventure movies that originated in a lot of the Raiders movies and the Indiana Jones ones. Like it really has become, it became like a big part of my life. I used to draw little tomb designs with swinging spikes and different mechanisms and stuff in my notebooks while in class. Always dreamt of being rich and not in order to spend the money, but as a child I had the dream that I would once die and be able to bury all my wealth with me in a very booby-trapped kind of area, so people had to go through puzzles to get the money. That was my big dream as a child. So yeah, no, definitely very, very, very influential. The first video game I ever played was actually... Oh, sorry. Sorry. Bit of delay.
We're going on to the video games now.
No, I was just going to mention that the first video game I ever played was LucasArts point-and-click adventure, the Indiana Jones one, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. Yes, so very much a big fan, big part of my growing
Kyle,
up.
I'm gonna go to you now. Kyle, what about you? Are you different?
He was there, yeah, sure.
All right, okay.
I would say he was like, I wasn't like dying to watch Indiana Jones all the time as a child.
Okay.
I'm probably with Gonzalo. I probably was more of a Mummy, fan at the time, because I think those were just newer and I kind of watched them. I definitely remember watching Temple of Doom. I actually remember quite a bit because there's the dinner scene. I always just remember.
Yes.
And especially, I loved, I remember watching Raiders, having a good time with that, and Last Crusade, not spoiled, probably my favourite.
Yeah,
and
same.
I then had, when was that? I was probably maybe like 7 when I first started watching them, and then they were like not in my head for a couple of years, and then I got really into all the Lego games that were coming out, and then in 2008, the Lego Indiana Jones game came out, which then kind of hyped my anticipation up for Crystal Skull, which came out that year as well. Yes. But like, I could probably remember the films better from those games than I can from the actual movies. Yeah.
Well, you rewatched them, didn't you? You rewatched them just the other week.
Yeah, no, I have. In the last week, I've now seen every single Indiana Jones film.
Okay, well.
But I fell in love with those because I played the first Lego game, which was just the first 3 films, and that's like the only one I ever played. So he was there, but he wasn't as like.
Not big. Well, I'm the opposite. Yeah. Indiana Jones was my guy. He was my hero. Star Wars can move aside, Disney stuff, anything. Indiana Jones, and especially at when I was a kid, Temple of Doom, because that was my mum's favourite, and still is my mum's favourite. Yeah. So that's the one she showed me first, and also smart lady, because that is technically chronologically the first one.
Yeah. So first one. That's
cool.
So she showed me that one first, and I was just obsessed with it.
That one's the one I liked the least because it's the scariest one I think. As a kid, I was terrified.
It's the scariest one, and I rewatched Temple of Doom so many times instead of going to the other sequels. I rewatched them a lot. And I've always said, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade and Temple of Doom is obviously still think that's a great film. Yeah. But those two really are like the pinnacle of action and adventure filmmaking. They are still. I mean, what do you mean still? They're beautiful, astounding looking films. The action is handled with so much intensity. It looks so raw and real, and it's like, oh my god, those guys are dying. They're getting hurt. And I just like how each of that original trilogy all brought a different flavour while still being consistent, which is a very hard thing to do in a franchise. Last Crusade's definitely the lightest and funniest one, and the weird one is Temple of Doom, and it's dark, and it created the PG-13 rating. And you have Indy, you have Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is right in between. It's got that darkness to it, but it's also a bit lighter.
It's weirdly reminiscent of the Star Wars trilogy, because you have the first one, which is like the most well-rounded one, then the second one gets way darker, and the third one is way more family-friendly.
But then, of course, you got Crystal Skull, which I think all of us agree on that is not very good.
Yes, I did love it when I watched it at first. Of
course you did.
I think it's one of those. It's one of those, because I rewatched it actually, because I was like, I can't honestly remember that well, and I rewatched it recently, and I was like, this is so frustrating to me, because I was like, I'm with it for the first half, and then it becomes a CGI dull mess in the second half, trying to imitate the old films while just not having that same aesthetic, while just being. It's just
like
wrong.
The dumb idea of the magnetism in the area of like even that scene is pretty solid, because it is like a very easy to understand mechanic, and then it's like a fight scene around that kind of idea. You know, like it does really establish the goals really well and that kind of thing, but then it gets really messy at the end. Because I think my favorite part of that movie by far is the chase with the motorcycle, where they go through the university and all that stuff.
That's a
very good
That's a really good chase scene. That's a really solid chase scene, and it also defines the characters really well and stuff, and establishes like their differences and their like similarities and stuff.
It's definitely a shame, because then you get onto the boat car one.
Yes.
That chase scene, and that's just ugly. Like, that is so ugly.
With the cliff to the side and the weird swingy monkey moment.
The Tarzan.
Even though I will say the ants scared the shit out of me as a kid.
That's a nice little horror.
Yeah.
But I guess let's just get right into Indiana Jones 5. So I guess we'll give a brief synopsis.
Yeah.
So Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was directed by James Mangold, of course, most famous for Logan, as well as Le Mans 66 and 3:10 to Yuma and Girl Interrupted. Incredible filmography, actually. It was also written by Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, and David Cope. Produced by Kathleen Kennedy and Steven Spielberg as well. And so, I guess the film, we have a brief introduction set in 1945 at the end of the Second World War, where we have, once again, Indiana Jones trying to reclaim an artifact from the Nazis.
Belongs in a museum.
Yeah, it belongs in a museum.
Which is good. Is a good start of like reestablishing him as like this is the post Last Crusade Indiana Jones. Like this is what his character is at this moment.
And he's trying to get the Dial of Archimedes. Well, actually not at that, but there's an artifact, the Dial of Archimedes, which he's trying to obtain back in 1945, and then boom. That's all I'll say about that. We jump ahead to 1969, the day of the moon landing, which is also simultaneously.
It's
the parade post.
It's the parade post.
So it's Moon Day. It's not the day of the moon landing.
It's confusing.
It's after they come back, they have a big parade for.
Which is also the day of Indiana Jones' retirement as a professor. But of course, he's soon thrown back into the world of adventure by his goddaughter Elena, who's played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's in the search for Archimedes' dial. And of course, no adventure is quite so simple. And the device is also sought after by the villainous Dr. Schmidt, who's played by Mads Mikkelsen, or Schmidt is his cover name, who also has plans to use it and restore history. So, that is Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny. Right. I don't know who to go to first here.
I would go to Gonfalo.
Okay.
Sorry.
Why? To be positive first, or because you just don't want to talk?
I don't.
You
don't know my opinion.
You don't.
I don't know.
You do
your
actually, but you.
Well, I actually surprisingly enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting much. I honestly was quite skeptical of them making a fifth movie. I wasn't expecting a lot. I was kind of worried that it would be way worse than it turned out to be. It wasn't incredible. It wasn't. I would not put it up with the first trilogy of movies at all. But it also didn't feel offensive, and no moment did I feel like this was like like they were just running Indiana Jones's name through the mud, which is what I was most scared of. Given that it was the director that it was, it's like I had my hopes for it to actually potentially be good. It wasn't that good. It was pretty serviceable. There wasn't a lot of breaking with conventions, which was something that surprised me, because I would have expected something like that from this director. Like the whole deconstruction thing. He did it very well with Logan, with the whole idea of like the deconstruction of the hero kind of trope and the superhero trope and stuff. There was none of that here, which kind of surprised me a little bit. But yeah, it was a fun ride. I had a fun day with watching it with my mum, so she liked it. It's fairly decent.
Kyle,
I didn't like it. I'm gonna go right in there.
Okay.
I have we'll get on to, because I have, like I was talking to Liz earlier about, I could like this in another sense. But there's definitely a huge negative aspect, which I think we'll get onto in spoilers.
In spoilers, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't want to get too specific about like the positives and negatives because I don't want to spoil it too much. But kind of, it's hard to talk about this one without spoiling it.
I have to say, I'm going to talk about the things I did like. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I thought she was great, and I thought her character was really good because she was not what I was expecting, and that for me was a nice kind of twist on things. I do think that there is some kind of nice core Indiana Jones moments in it. I know this is actually probably kind of different to you guys. I didn't like the start. I have a whole thing that I do not like anti-aging at all. I don't think it should be used at all. It's just I hate it so much, and I hate that this company in particular is just adamant on using it all the time. Especially in the way that they're trying to use these AIs to convey their voices. I don't think it works well.
Well, that was Harrison Ford's voice, though.
Yeah,
I was going to say
they use an AI thing to de-age his voice, and I don't like
that. Didn't work. That didn't work at all because I just thought it was old Harrison.
I don't think it was AI at all. I think that was just current Harrison Ford.
Because he sounded so fucking old at the start.
That's why I thought the voice was horrific.
I don't think it was that bad, to be fair.
That's
my...
Okay,
carry on.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I like what they were trying to do with it, because I thought it was quite good for the plot and introducing...
It's a good story. I think it's a very solid story setup.
I just didn't visually enjoy it. And then I have a lot of issues with the story itself, and I have a lot of issues with the ending itself, but I can't really say anything about it. So I'm going to pass to Lewis. Pass to Lewis.
Okay, well, look, I'll do my positives and negatives. So, firstly, off the bat, and I feel like this is definitely not going to be spoken about a lot when this gets a wide release and people start seeing over the weekend and talk about it. But Harrison Ford gives an astounding... I think his performance is absolutely brilliant in this film. I really do. I think it's genuinely, really melancholic, filled with regret. But also there's still agency to him, and one with like true desire to save the day, even though life has been really hard on him. And I just loved it. And all the two main one main emotional beat in the film, which on paper is written fine, is just completely elevated by his performance. And then there's a scene towards the end which I think is ruined by the surroundings, not so much him. I think he really is giving a really at times brilliant, beautiful performance.
I just realised which one
you realised what I was talking about.
I just realised,
Waller-Bridge also, I think she's a great counterpart to him, someone who's a young adventurer, but also...
Their dynamic was the best part of the movie by far.
I agree with that. Also, that was incredible.
But also cynical and just kind of nasty and just kind of, I'm all in it for the money. The complete polar opposite to what a young Indiana Jones was like. So I like that. And also, Mads Mikkelsen is just bored. He's just Mads Mikkelsen. Like, he's one of the best actors on planet Earth. And... Not his character.
My mom's comment when we finished the movie was like, "God damn, that villain played it really well," and I was like, "Yeah, it's Matt Mikkelsen." Of course he did.
He is introduced in the introduction to the film, but he's not his proper villain introduction, which is in 1969 when in the hotel room. I thought that scene was absolutely fantastic. That was really actually well written. I was like, and it frustrates me. Because for the first third, I was really, really enjoying this. I was like, see that moment at that scene, man, because I was like, this is really good. I was like, this is really good, and I was really loving it. Look, this is one of the most expensive films ever made, and the production value is top notch. I think for the most part, we'll get into that later. I even think, Kelly, you've got problems with the de-aging thing. I have problems with resurrecting dead people. But they don't, guys, don't worry, they don't do that in this film. Flash. But the de-aging, I think, of Harrison Ford, I think it's annoying because I know that all that's anyone's really going to talk about the opening scene. I enjoy the opening scene. I like how they kind of do keep it in the shadows as much as they can.
See, that's my thing. I don't enjoy the opening scene, but not for the de-aging. And I'll talk about it more in spoilers, but I think the de-aging was just okay.
The close-ups are really good on it. It looks really photorealistic, but it's more in the movement. But I enjoyed the opening. And there's this whole theme going on about history being ignored and Indy sort of in the latter stage of his life. You know, history is sort of there's this obsession with space and the future at this time period.
The
and
end
he's
of
now
history.
sort of being left in the dirt with history itself. People are more obsessed with the future than anything else, and it's also clearly not trying to be like the original trilogy.
No.
I think Crystal Skull had that problem.
Definitely.
I think it is trying to be its own thing.
Yeah.
But
negatives.
The action is fine for the most part. The action's fine. I think aesthetically, it definitely looks like a modern film. It doesn't look anywhere near as good as that original trilogy did with the harsh lighting and vibrant colours. And
I miss
although
the
action is competent, like it's competent. It's better than like a lot of the other schlock like Fast X or Flash or whatever crap's come out in the last couple of years. Now, I will say this isn't a spoiler. I'm just going to say the third act as a whole, on paper, right? On paper, the main concept of the film, I am genuinely okay with.
Yeah,
right? But the use of it in this film is just too silly for me. And I think I think the film is at odds with itself because it's when all the best moments are happening, when I'm talking about the Harrison Ford performance, when it's really trying to be a poignant character study of Indiana Jones and be something really emotional and a fitting conclusion to the story, but then everything else just contradicts that. It's the Nope thing where it's like it's all spectacle, but none of it is benefiting the theme or the purpose of the story itself. And I just think, especially the finality, is just a narrative decision that it contradicts the personal and intimate nature and of the intrinsic nature of the story. And it just frustrates me because I really think they actually could have done something really brilliant with it, but I just think it completely falls flat and it looks wrong and the way it ends is just.
I've got a question. Lewis. I'm going to word this very carefully as not to spoil.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have the ending that we got.
Yes.
And a wee bit before the end of the film, there's another ending hinted at before we get the actual ending. If you're following me, the ending that was hinted.
Yes.
If that was to happen, would you have thought that would have been a better conclusion to his character? In the fact that you think he got what he wanted to what we saw. This might make sense when I can speak about spoilers.
No, I know, I do know what you're talking
about. You follow me, right? Sorry.
I know what you're trying to say. Yeah.
Because the film goes on a bit longer.
I don't know if I answered myself.
Honestly, I think I was just kind of a bit stunned at what was going on, that I couldn't really compute in my own head if that was the right way to leave it.
Because it was during that really.
I'm going to say yes, but I think they would have needed to do something a little bit more to make that a bit.
I would have said yes because it was that, like you say, fantastic.
Actually, you know what? No. Actually, I take that back. I don't think that would have worked. I don't think that ending. I think
given the mechanic that we were playing with in that third, that third act. Yeah. In my opinion, they did the best thing that you could have done with that mechanic, and I actually really enjoyed that third act.
That's what you think the best thing they could have done with them unlimited possibilities you could do with that story thing.
No, with that mechanic specifically. Like that thing they were doing. I actually think the option that we got rather than the option that one of the characters would have wanted was better. I wouldn't have liked the other option as much, and I don't think it would have been as fun for me. I personally really enjoyed the finale, and my main issues with these movies are in the second act and not the third one.
Well, I know the film is also a bit too long. It does meander, and it could have easily cut off half an hour of this, I think.
Yes.
But I look, the final act really is going to be the talking point that all anyone's really going to go on about, and it is going to. You're either going to go with it, like Gonzalo here, or you're gonna. It's just not going to work for you, and I think that's why this is very split critically.
It is a very split movie critically. Because I was looking at reviews, and like it's either people loved it or they hated it. It's been really, yeah.
Actually, it's more like I feel like a lot of it's quite mixed. Like I've not actually seen a score lower than a 4 out of 10, so it's not like people hate it. I think that it's just that thing. But also, like I said, the action's okay, and there's like it meanders, and there is problems with it, and it does.
I have a lot of issues with the pacing of this movie, and I have a lot of issues with the action scenes of this movie.
Yeah.
I do not like the action scenes in this movie.
It's weird. So before we do scores, the action, especially since I have just rewatched everything, I did feel there was a lot of more action scenes with Harrison Ford sitting down, and I do appreciate that he is older, and I think that was just noticeable. Like, I remember like watching.
There's scenes where he's jumping from cars and stuff. I mean, obviously it's stunt double, but you know.
Yeah, I know, but then like, see when I'm watching like Crystal Skull, especially in that kind of starting scene, I did feel that felt more Harrison Ford actually kind of doing stuff.
I mean, he was in his 60s then.
Exactly, but then that's also
80.
another issue that I'm like,
of course.
Yeah, we're making a film. You know, you're going to do an action scene when he's 90. It's going to be like a crane.
Look, honestly, having Indiana Jones sort of taking a backseat in the action is fine, especially when he's the age
that was
he is.
Perfect. My issue was not the fact that Harrison Ford himself was taking a backseat. My issue is that I didn't like how they shot the action one bit.
I think
it
I
felt
think
very generic. It felt very, and it felt like every action scene. So when you see the old movies, I can tell you every single action scene because each one of them is an incredible set piece that has very memorable key moments, and they go through a whole narrative. Whereas in this one, especially in the action scene in, let's say, the hot location, just I don't want to even spoil where people go in this movie, the one in the hot location, you know, that goes on for what feels like 2 hours and nothing happens.
Yeah,
like the nothing happens.
It's also like, because I always respect, real action, which is why Raiders is probably my favorite Indiana Jones film. Because all three of them had very real and raw action.
That Egypt chasing, like going for the ark and like riding around the car and falling and then climbing back up, like that is.
Which frustrates me is because see the chase in. Actually, is it Casablanca? I can't remember. I think it's Casablanca.
No.
It's Casablanca.
It's not. They go to Casablanca after that on a train. They're not.
Yes, sorry, you're right. Fuck, you're right. God damn.
It's fine. It's fine. Well, I mean, some people pay attention when they watch movies. Other people watch 1,000 movies. But you know,
the chase scene there. It's so frustrating because every time they go in, like the shot is inside the vehicle. It's so obviously green screen around.
It is incredible.
And then when it goes out, it's like, oh, that's real stuff. It's like, why couldn't you have just done long takes? Just do long takes of the cars outside.
I don't understand why we have so many close-up shots that take us out of the action. I don't understand why the action is so frantic. I don't understand why there has to be so much of it. Because it is a hell of a long fight, like such a long chasing. And the only thing that I gained from this chasing is a small character moment between two of them. That's the only thing. And I like that character moment, but it could have just happened. We didn't how fucking big is this city? They're driving for what feels like 2 hours, and they seem to know every single street. And the that annoying bad guy that we don't give a shit about, he keeps coming back and coming back and coming back.
It literally just popped into my head. It was Tangier, because Indy says, "I know Tangier," because he knows the streets very well.
He knows the streets.
Right, okay,
but that's another thing. They set that up. There's a lack of story during those fight scenes. Not only just the way they're shot that I disliked, a lack of story. He mentions in that moment, "I know Tangier," but then there's no payoff to that. There's no moment where he says, "Turn here," and then he realizes they've built something in the time that since he's been there, and then the kid is like, "No, follow me, I know Tangier," and we have a little moment of, oh, maybe he is getting old or something. He just says that, and it's just I don't know.
All good.
It's kind of
rant about Tangier over.
Sorry, yes, I
Let's
really
get
hate
the
that.
scores so we can get right into spoilers. So,
yes,
Kyle, what are you giving?
Kyle,
start
Wait. Spoilers. Go.
No,
we're not doing spoilers. We're doing scores.
Oh, okay. Thank God. I thought you were going directly into scores.
This guy pays attention.
I forgot about scores because I texted you my score last night, so I already thought, oh, this is dumb. I need to think about numbers. Yes, sorry.
It's getting a 4 out of 10 for me.
Okay, 4 out of 10. Okay.
What were you going for?
I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
It's pretty decent. Okay. It's really fun. I'd watch it again. Yeah. I might skip a fight scene.
Like, even though we complained about the action scenes, I mean, they're more competently made than a lot of the other action crap I've seen.
Oh, yeah. These are better than Marvel fight scenes. Like, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But that's not saying much, so.
True. Well, I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. I think I'm solid on that. I do find this very frustrating, especially because I enjoyed the first third so much, and I enjoy a lot of the character work with Indy and the performances here. But it really is. It's a film of. It's a very, very frustrating and kind of split film. You know, it's one that's at odds with itself. And I think we just need to get right into that. So this is spoilers, guys. If you have not seen Indiana Jones, please do not listen to this right now. I mean, I'm sure spoilers are already floating on the internet, and maybe you don't care. Maybe you just want to listen to this anyway. That's absolutely fine. So, yes, we kind of knew this going in, and they openly say this, really within the first act anyway, is that the Dial of Archimedes, the reason that Mads Mikkelsen's character is going after this, is obsessed with it, is because it has the ability to take you back in time, and he wants to rewrite history to make it that Germany wins the Second World War.
Yes.
And now, already on paper, when you say time travel in an Indiana Jones film, people will absolutely hate that idea.
Yeah.
I don't hate that idea. I think there's time travel is you could do if you just put that on paper, there's a billion ways you can go with that, right? I think there are ways to make it work here. But what happens here is that we get to, Indiana Jones, he's been kidnapped by the Nazis, he's been put on a plane, and, Mads Mikkelsen's Dr. Voller's put in the coordinates to take him back to 1939 in his Nazi uniform and all. But of course, he didn't take into account continental drift, apparently, even though none of this actually matters, because apparently it's like a one-way ticket, this thing. So, they end up getting sent back to, 200 BC?
It was 212 BC.
Oh, wow, okay, I was
it's
close.
It's the siege of Sicily,
Because the siege was between 212 and 213.
Yes.
No,
it's the Romans.
Other way around, 213 to 212.
Okay.
Also, I do feel like I need to just put it out there. I'm a big fucking fan of this point in history. I absolutely I grew up watching documentaries about this stuff, and I absolutely love the main figure that is kind of at the center of all of this. Big fan of all of it. So any reference and anything like that was an MCU moment for me. Oh my god, it's the guy! It's the guy!
But yes, this big plane is flying through this battle between the Romans and the Greeks, and this is where I have the problem with it. Right? It's because I don't believe. I just don't think the story and what they're doing with Indiana Jones and this being the finale of the film jives or fits with what they were doing at all. To me, it seems like this, and I obviously have no idea what happened behind the scenes or the making of this film. It feels like James Mangold went into this project wanting to make his Logan-esque, obviously not anywhere near as dark as that, but a more
grounded,
poignant look and profound look at Indiana Jones. And Disney were like, but also you need to do all the cool, funny action stuff with spectacle.
I would be surprised, because we have 5-6 hour long chase scenes that do not need to be there. So I would not be surprised now.
And really, honestly, if you actually just advertised to me an Indiana Jones film that was just a character study with little to no action and a deconstruction of him, I would watch it. But that's obviously not what you're going to get. And I just don't... Look, we already had, of course, you already had aliens in this universe, and the reason that aliens doesn't work in Indiana Jones 4 is because when you had all the old relics in the first 3 films, and they were either relating to religious things or godly things or spiritual things, it was, we don't know what any of that means. What power does that mean? It's so mystical, it's mysterious, and we never get a good glimpse at what the god stuff
very
is, right?
Situational. None of the artifacts, and I think that is the key with most of the magic in Indiana Jones, none of the artifacts are really a thing that you can take from its place and apply in the modern world. Like, all of them have like caveats and stuff. Like, obviously the Ark of the Covenant is the one that gets like the closest to a weapon that can be used and stuff, but we saw how that ended. And then with like the stones in the second one, it's very much just like a protection thing about one specific village. Like, this isn't about like a thing that can end the world or anything. No, it's just a stone that protects a village. Then in the third one, like, the chalice isn't effective and doesn't give you eternal life past a certain threshold. So like, you know, it's all very kind of like and limited.
Look, and that's why I was on about Crystal Skulls, that doesn't work, is because when you see aliens, it's like, well, okay, well, yeah, aliens can do whatever, they're super advanced, they have spaceships, they can do it. All the mystery's gone, there's nothing cool about aliens doing whatever telekinesis stuff. And then you get to this, right? And when I'm seeing it on paper, I really think a part of me actually believed, because obviously Voller is so obsessed with going back in time, I thought there was going to be a twist in that it just doesn't do that. It just doesn't work. And look, all the artifacts in all the films don't work to what the villain wants them to do. It always ends badly for them. And it ends badly for Voller too here. But it still goes back in time. I don't know, it just, for that, it really bugged me. I really would have liked something more impactful and something that really actually was resonant to Indy and the story. But we just got this spectacle, and the way it looks as well, it looks bad. It looks fake, and it looks like people in costumes.
It looks like an episode of Horrible Histories.
It just, exactly. It looks like people in dress up. And this is what I was saying earlier about that really emotional dialogue that Indy had. And he's in fucking Italy in 200 BC, surrounded by green screen. And I was like, what? Why are they doing this to this dialogue and this great performance? Why would you take it to this level? I thought, I know I hate always doing this thing, what if they did this? What if they did this? What was in my head? But they could have... What if the time travel device only worked in the sense that when you use it, you get to see your own history visualized or something like that? You get to go through the time of your own...
That's what I expected them to do. That's what I expected them to do. To be like, you know how like the ending of like Interstellar, where like it's the thing turns to be more of a personal thing.
I was thinking about this today.
I was expecting, I was expecting it to be something more like that. I was pleasantly surprised because the idea of a German bomber being shot at by Roman trebuchets seems like something out of my childhood dreams.
You have the mind of a child.
I do have the mind of a child, and I still liked it. I did not feel emotional during that scene, and I think the fact that it was very clearly a green screen did not help. For a movie with such a big budget, it's incredible that they couldn't go to fucking Greek Island to shoot that.
They went everywhere else. Clearly, they went on the.
They did. They didn't touch Greece and they didn't touch Italy. It's kind of odd.
Being filmed. Could you imagine what the internet would be like? Like if they saw Harrison Ford on like a beach surrounded by like Romans,
but like, there is a lot of very isolated, very small islands in like the Greek peninsula that you could do that shit with.
That doesn't really matter though, because 99% of the audience who sees it doesn't know this shit anyway, and it's for like it doesn't matter. So it just
I feel like
the studio might give a shit. The studio might care. The
some internet.
Yeah. I feel like the directors and the writers shouldn't have cared, but the studio might have.
Yeah. I mean, of course, well, we'll get to the ending as well. The whole weird last hymn, it's just so badly put together, I think. Because we have Indy's shot and he wants to sit here and die and just be part of history, which I understand what they were going for. And then he just gets punched in the face, cut to black, he's back in his flat. Marion is there, even though they divorced and their son died. That's the other emotional point, which I really thought was brilliant. Actually, is when him telling the story.
I thought that was really good.
What if you could go back in time? What would you do? He's like, I'd go back and tell my son not to enlist because you're going to die.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my god, that was great.
I loved how that ended as well. When he just walks away while she says, "You're still wearing the ring," and he doesn't respond. He just keeps on responding. That was great. So powerful and good. Yeah. The scene with the eels was bad. Why
eels? Like eels. I kind of the diving sequence was kind of I kind of like
the diving sequence was really good and tense. I don't understand why eels were involved in any way.
Anyway,
I really didn't like the eels at all.
Back to the ending. So then Indy just wakes up. Indy wakes up back in his flat. Marion's there. They're going to work it out. and they then end the film by quoting Raiders, "Where does it hurt? Where does it not hurt? Oh, here on the elbow and here."
That
and here.
made me cry like a baby.
And it's just, and that's what was the
That's
point?
a disgusting ending to the character.
That made me cry like a baby.
That's a bit harsh, but
no, I really
that
think
ending.
so. Like, if this is his last thing, and that's the last thing you see of him, a rushed
I don't
ending
think
to
disgusting
a story.
is the right word, though.
No, but I don't think they treated the character like with a good send off after what 40-ish years.
Yes.
Give or take.
No, for me it wasn't that. I don't think
I
the ending isn't
like
great to me, but also I don't think it's a disservice to Indy. I think it's like he just ends up with Marion again. For me, it was pointless because we got this ending already in number 4. So I just feel like
maybe that's what I'm feeling. It's like it's
yeah.
Like, why do
it felt
something
a bit
where
empty.
I think 4 is probably a better ending because it's like them going off into the sunset, being married and everything, you know?
What were you going
I feel like thematically it was very much a rehash of the idea of 4, but I also thought it was really respectful and nice. I like the idea of, like, you know, this man who's pretty much at this point lost everything. He's not an adventurer anymore. He just retired from being a professor. He clearly knows that the world does not give a fuck about him or history or anything to do with what his entire life was about. He has always had a big issue with family. And like keeping consistent ties with the people that he knows in his life, and I feel like his arc reflects the arc of Elena and like her whole idea of like kind of like pretending like she doesn't care about people and then clearly caring about people. He kind of has the same thing with like the only person that he's still in touch with, who he brought to New York and stuff. Like it's like there is still like one person that he's managed to keep that kind of like connection with somehow. And it's like, because he just struggles with it. And I like that the ending is him being like, no, I'm just going to die here because nobody wants me and there's no reason for me to exist in this world. And he gets punched by his family, who brings him back and says, no, your family gives a fuck about you and they still want you to be here. And even if you feel like you don't have like a reason to be here, you do. Us. This family. And I like that. I thought that was really nice and respectful and a good way of saying it back. That's at least what I got from that.
Maybe if they like, because we could rehash some time allocation and maybe give them a wee bit more time at the end.
I agree with that.
For a 2.5 hour film, the ending was rushed.
That's the thing. I would have definitely...
See if you got what point you've just said across better.
Yes,
and
yes.
A 20-minute end rather than
I will agree with you guys on that.
5-minute end.
My main problem with the entire movie is that the middle bit drags for way too fucking long for no fucking reason when the beginning and the ending are the things that matter really to this movie. I would have definitely allocated a lot more time to the ending and less time to the middle. I also think if they had done that, they might have had better budget allocation as well, and we would have gotten better,
Disney
more realistic kind of sets.
They'll spend it on goddamn.
Yeah, but like we would have gotten, better sets and stuff for the Greek part, which seemed to be like a big problem for you guys. How like it looked way cheaper than the rest of the movie, especially given that the whole movie is kind of like it's all a period piece. But the ending is clearly a different period. It does seem like the 70s were very well explored. Whereas you know the 200 BC weren't.
No.
Yes,
it is incredibly jarring, just visually, aesthetically. It just doesn't jive with Indiana Jones. It feels very wrong. And Gonzalo, I'm literally with you on that sense. Where like, I really like what they're trying to do, and I like Indy's where he's at in his life and how sad and alone he feels. Right? I really like
it's brilliantly done. Yeah.
But the film is so messy and doesn't focus, doesn't put its efforts in the right places, and
I would agree.
That's the problem.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a push for certain scenes to be worked on and certain things to be done. Like I said, I kind of mentioned this at the beginning. I really don't like the chase scene at the beginning. The fact that they spent so much time on detailed movements within that first chase, given how dark and barely visible everything is. Because I was at a cinema where like the only light was the screen, and I was still struggling to understand what was going on in that motorbike scene. When
I think it was just enough. Like I didn't think it was. Yeah,
I thought that went on for too long. I thought it should it seems like it didn't add anything. Him getting hung and then escaping from that added something. Him kind of like disguising himself as a Nazi to try to like keep to take the car and stuff added something. But then there was like this big struggle with him and the motorbikes and stuff before he even gets onto the train to then have another very long chase scene back and forth on the train. Yeah. I feel like it was way too much.
Yeah.
For like, 'cause the scenes, like the chases and stuff, need to add to what the story's about. Yeah. And if not, they need to be spectacle. And it wasn't visual enough to be spectacle, and it wasn't plot heavy enough to actually add that much. Because the only thing that you get from that first scene in the train is, first of all, the relationship between Indy and this other guy. Second of all, you meet the main villain and you understand his thing. You have this weird fake out with the kind of spear of Jesus, which I guess historically, Hitler was obsessed with Christian artifacts because he was very into Catholicism and mysticism and all that shit. Sure, that's fine. Spend went too much on that. He gets it, then he finds out it's sword, then he starts running back and forth kind of thing. There is way too much going on for something that should be a flashback to establish the main goal of the story. You know what I mean?
Even though I enjoyed it, and it's a good story setup, I agree. You can cut 8 to 10 minutes off that, and you'd probably get the same effect. So, and also you would have spent less money on that.
Exactly, and that goes for me for most of the chase scenes of the movie. Yes,
the de-aging in Harrison Ford may be iffy, but the de-aging on Mads Mikkelsen is perfect.
Oh yeah,
they only had to take off a few years, and that was.
I was going to say, did they de-age him at all, or was they just Mads Mikkelsen?
They made
because he just looks great.
He looks great.
He looks great.
I see when I saw him in that first scene, I was like, "Oh shit, they're gonna put him old man Mads Mikkelsen in the rest of the movie because that's just Mads Mikkelsen." Yeah. And then I realized, oh no, the man doesn't age.
I would think see the second flashback they do.
Yes,
he goes to. I thought that was great because obviously he's not having to de-age him that much because it's only like
yes when he goes to the house of Helena's house,
18 years like in that kind of
That was also a really good flashback for me because I really, really did love the character of Helena and how she's basically Indy as a child. Like, that reminded me so much. Like, it had, without being like a complete copy or nothing, but like, it had the echoes of the third movie when we see Indy trying to connect with his father and his father being obsessed with his archaeology instead of paying attention. Like, the idea of they like... Because Elena, for me, is very much Indy in Temple of Doom, you know?
Yeah.
It's like this Tomb Raider kind of like character who only cares about like the money and the treasure and only starts to give a fuck about other people at this moment, you know? It's their relationship was great,
But I guess, look, I don't know. I mean, like I said when we were talking about Indiana Jones before, I mean, I adore those first 3 films, and you know, he was my guy. I mean, but I have to face the truth. I'm not a super mega deluded fanboy. I have to be honest. And I was disappointed. And look, when we did our most anticipated films of the year, I did
this
say
was one of yours. Yeah.
This was my second, and I was like, I'm also really terrified for it.
Yeah.
And it's not the worst thing in the world, but it certainly isn't great. And
I feel
it's
like
just a big mixed bag.
I feel like the biggest sin of this movie... Yeah, sorry.
If, like, last December I said to you, you would have preferred Dungeons and Dragons over Indiana Jones, what would you have said?
I probably would have stopped talking to you, Kel. Honestly,
I
think
would have genuinely been that, like, especially if you saw that first D&D trailer, and then...
Such a bad
it's so funny.
The
Indiana Jones trailer, I was like, wow, that really got me, and then the first D&D trailer, I was like, this looks like a 3 out of 10, and then boom, look where we are. Life is strange.
But you had the same thing with like the Disney Plus rom-com that you just watched. The trailer is absolutely awful.
Yeah, brilliant fun. Go watch Riley, guys. Go watch Get Riley. But look, I honestly, this is one of those films I give it a 5 out of 10. And it's one of those films where it's like you will land, sort of like Beau Was Afraid. Remember Beau Was Afraid, Kyle? You will land somewhere in between. Like it's either going to work with you or it's really not. But look,
I would say Yeah, I would say it's this movie is not gonna go below that 4 out of 10 that Cal gave him. And it's not gonna go above my 7.
There's nothing that would send it lower.
Yeah,
than 4. Okay.
And it's not gonna go above my 7. So you're either gonna have a pretty good experience or you're gonna have a middling one. It's not going to be a horrific experience, and it's not going to be a mind-blowing one. But
right. last minute of the show, Gonzalo, give your rankings of the Indiana Jones films.
Okay, rankings of the Indiana Jones films. The best one, in my opinion, is have to be Last Crusade, which in Spain we call the Holy Grail. Okay. Then I'm going to go with Raiders. Then Temple of Doom.
Yep.
Then I would say Dial of Destiny, and I would finish off with Crystal Skull.
I'm the exact same. Sorry, that is literally my list.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that is literally my list.
Mine is almost exactly the same, but Raiders is my favourite, and then I'm going Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, Dial of Destiny, Crystal Skull.
Nice.
Yeah. I think I do think the character work is far more interesting in this than Crystal Skull. Crystal Skull is very dull.
Very. I would say this, weirdly enough, I think this is the deepest, most three-dimensional indie that I've seen in all of these movies. I would say out of all the movies, Harrison Ford's character is the most three-dimensional in this one. Fair. Despite all the mistakes with the movie, I would say that I've never seen so much behind someone's eyes than I did in this movie.
He's such a brilliant performer, and that's why it's a 5. Just complete frustration. Imagine if they just focused in so much on that. Dial us back to under 2 hours, purely character focused. Get Christopher McQuarrie to direct the action. Everything would have been wonderful. Change the time travel stuff, brilliant. But look, that will wrap up today's show, guys. So thank you very much, Gonzalo, for joining me.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Yes, so on next week's show, we're going to go jump to another franchise, and we're going to be talking about the Mission Impossible franchise, because Dead Reckoning is less than 2 weeks away, so...
Oh my god!
Thanks,
I'm so excited. I'm sorry. We watched the trailer before the indie movie, and I got so hyped. Oh.
Yeah, you're posting it to us you're thinking like something like, oh look, I saw this leaked trailer.
I know. It's like, yep, it's been out for a year.
I was so excited. God damn it!
But yeah, we're going to be talking about Mission Impossibles 1 to 6. We're going to be talking about the franchise as a whole, our favourites, our least favourites, all that stuff. Yes, I think that'll wrap it up. But look, we just gave our opinions on No Hard Feelings and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. But at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. Thank you very much.